Welcome to Well Good Movies, the podcast for film fans by film fans. Every episode we look at films old and new to choose what should be preserved for all time in our movie vault. With lively topics, big questions and crazy challenges to entertain us and our guests, we always look to have fun by giving you the topics worth discussing and the movies worth watching, even if there are some duds along the way. But don't just take my word for it. Here's a preview of what to expect in today's episode.
In both these films, the romantic subplot is signalled by another character saying to one of the characters, "I saw the way you were looking at them."
Do you know what's worse about all of that? Like when you have that, "I saw the way you were looking at it." What? With genuine fear for her safety in the middle of a cataclysmic disaster? Yeah, don't you look at most people like that?
Hello and welcome to Goodwell Movies, the podcast that gives you the movies worth discussing and the topics worth watching. I kind of butchered that, but it is Friday the 13th after all. So, what's Friday the 13th without some bad luck? So I'm your host, Oscar David. I may as well carry on with, the theme of messing things up. I am joined, as always, by my co-host. We tried to see if he was going to be on this podcast. We put it to a vote recently, guys, and it was so close. It was like a nail biter. We've been counting for days. We thought he might have not made it, but he just clinched through, unfortunately. So here is Craig McDonald, everyone.
Yeah, tough luck for you there, David.
Yeah, I know. Yes, that Friday bad luck is still continuing through there. Oh, well.
You could just stop that, all right? Stop that.
We'll see.
So much of it being a pleasure me joining you every single week. You're trying to find cowardly ways of getting rid of me.
True. It's fraud. Yeah, today is Friday the 13th, and we've got quite a show for you today, but we can't be completely reliant on our setup today because, as you can tell, things have been going wrong already, so I'm not quite sure about this guest list I have. It would be awesome if we did have these guests, but let's see. So apparently our first guest is the amazing Christopher Walken.
Well, good movies. I'm sorry, I can't keep that up. It's actually Christopher Maxwell.
Well,
I didn't want to let you get you like really down about that, David. No. But you know what? It was worth a shot.
It's the next. Screw David's feelings. Like at the end of the day, we want you.
Yeah, it's the next best thing. Okay.
Well, let's watch is your birthright.
And I'll be very interested if this is our next guest as well. We've actually got with us Maisie Williams.
No, sorry, that's Kieran Williams.
Oh, damn it! Right, so I even got the gender wrong there. Sorry.
Not even to attempt an impression.
No. Just if he does get out like a sword at one point, we might know that there's some connection there. So guys. Hopefully from now on, the Friday the 13th bad luck won't continue. And yeah, it kind of has been a bit of a disaster, this entire setup to this episode. So guess what we're going to be talking about today? And that is disasters, more specifically, disaster movies. So they have been a staple of Hollywood for many years now, and many people this year have felt that 2020 has been quite a bit of a disaster. So with Friday the 13th and 2020 both combined this year, we thought what better time to remind ourselves about how much worse it could be, or whether the world will come to an end this year. We will have to see. So just to get us in that feeling for what 2020 has been like as a year, and that it has been kind of like a movie, we actually have a trailer for 2020 coming up for you right now.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
And the president alerting Congress tonight the U.S. will respond with force if Iran retaliates for the drone strike that killed top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani.
1 year ago this week, more than 500,000 Hong Kongers hit the streets. Their anger targeted Chief Executive Carrie Lam and a controversial extradition bill. Their fear, it would give Beijing the power to disappear people in Hong Kong into China's opaque legal system.
For months, Australia has endured the most prolonged and destructive bushfire emergency in memory.
The storm cell is developed to the north with heavy wind gusts toward the southwest. Fire sits at trigger point 3. It's not gonna run.
The WHO says there are a lot of unknowns about this disease, from the source to how it spreads and its clinical features.
We don't know the source of this virus. We don't understand how easily it spreads.
It's urging its citizens not to travel abroad as it struggles to contain the virus that has now killed more than 100 people. The total number
restrictions. They don't want to see a repeat of SARS, similar to this, we think, which happened back in 2002.
If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
What is the most resilient parasite? Bacteria? A virus? An intestinal one?
And the biggest disaster that can't account for is that it says it's coming to cinemas this summer. I don't think it would be.
I was thinking that. I was like, I hope not.
What's mental about that? Like, the first part of that was all just the first quarter of the year.
I was thinking that, yeah, it was depressing even before any mention of COVID.
That's going to be a bleak opening act.
That's the great thing about it, is just the fact that it's just like a film trailer is just like halfway through, you're just like, then that's when the major villain comes into the piece, kind of thing. But yeah, so I hope you're all excited after that one, guys. Certainly a positive way to start, isn't it?
But I feel like death, David. I'm not going to lie. Just
we'll cheer ourselves up now by going back to our guests again, some proper introductions. Now that we've set the mood for the episode, we'll be seeing how similar the disaster films we were talking about today are to that trailer. Shout out to the person who made that, which I think also lightens the mood. He's called Grim Sausage. So combination there, grim, but sausage, funny. Hey. So check it out on YouTube, guys. 2020 official movie trailer by Grim Sausage. Today we are talking about disaster movies, so we thought we would bring on two previous guests which have a history of talking about big franchises, big theatric movies. So first of all, with us we have Chris Maxwell, who joined us previously on our Halloween special and Invisible Man episode. So hello officially, Chris. Now I'm not addressing you as a famous movie actor.
Not quite, I'm afraid. But hello, guys. It's great to be back again. It honestly, just talking about that Invisible Man, that feels like it was about a decade ago at this point.
Yeah, we had the same thing because that was our previous guest on the Valentine's episode, which was the episode after that. So yeah, that was around that weird time in which, judging by that trailer, we were in the Australia bushfire sort of era of just before it arrived. But yeah, you were quite excited for this on the basis of Friday the 13th, which I was like, unfortunately, Chris, we're not talking about that movie. But tell us a bit about why you think Friday the 13th is still worth a shout on Friday the 13th, which is today.
I think it's because Friday the 13th, it's always got that reputation of being really unlucky. But I honestly think that is mostly just because of the film. Or the films, I should say. The films, there's so many of them. And it's so weird because I actually watched the first one again recently. And the only mention of it being Friday the 13th is right at the beginning of the film, and then it's never mentioned again. And I swear to God that if you watch any of those sequels, that date is barely mentioned. The fact that it is Friday or the 13th, there's not even a month. There's not even a month that's mentioned as well. Like it's like it's Friday the 13th. When? Oh, it's like Easter. It could happen anytime. It all depends on the sun or something. It's a staple of horror, and it's a staple of cinema, I'd say. And that Jason and the hockey mask. Every time Friday the 13th rolls around, you see everyone talking about it. But in that sense, it is a disaster movie because most of those sequels are pretty terrible.
That is very true. And yeah, it's a good point with the date thing, because it's strange that, like you said, with something like Candyman, it'd be like, oh, you say Candyman, or there's always that thing of, you say the name, or you go to this certain location, you find that character. So you'd think it would be an element of every film. They'd be like, oh no, Friday the 13th's coming. Is something terrible going to happen? Is this, character going to pop up? But yeah, it's weird that they don't incorporate that into the story every time. So also joining us isn't Maisie Williams, it is Kieran Williams, who joined us on our Star Wars episode, and that was also, back in January, which is crazy to think of. Rise of Skywalker hasn't been out that long, guys. It's it feels like that film has felt like, to me, I was like, wow, that feels like it's been out like 2-3 years by now. How are you, Kieran? How are you with, Star Wars and all the film watching you've done in the last year?
I'm very well, thank you. Me and Star Wars are doing okay at the minute with Mandalorian. Season 2 out recently, and starting to forget Rise of Skywalker, so it's all good.
Yeah. It's kind of reflective of Star Wars at the moment, isn't it? It's like we were in The Empire Strikes Back at that time, and now it's like the election in the US. Everyone's like using those images from Return of the Jedi of like the Emperor being thrown down the shaft, and like everyone's celebrating on Endor. It's like, oh, we're in Return of the Jedi now. Thank God. Obviously, it was interesting talking about the theme of this episode, because I think you said that your fiance is a massive fan of disaster movies, and you were like, I'm not so much a fan of them as well. So, I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit indifferent about them, to be honest. But yeah, as you say, my fiance is disaster movies and like action thrillers. So Speed are basically her comfort movies. Like if she's feeling ill or doesn't know what to watch, it's one of those. It's a Dante's Peak, Volcano, Speed, anything like that. She knows they're not great. Like she knows it's not high cinema or anything like that. But it's just, she can just watch it and just, it's like a warm bath,
Yeah. What was your feelings on it? Even before rewatching some for this episode, were you always just like the entire genre is trash, or was it?
Yeah, I think I used to think that, and yeah, I'm sure we'll get into this a bit more, but like, yeah, certainly the sort of 90s and early noughties ones, more or less. Without, it's hard to talk about without sounding like a film snob, but more or less vehicles for special effects, and just you thought Independence Day was cool when the White House blew up. Well, now we're going to have a tidal wave, and constantly one-upping the last disaster movie, basically, and not really doing much else.
Very much, yeah. Today, the two films that we're going to be focusing on mainly are Volcano and 2012, which is, of course, from Roland Emmerich. We had to get, Roland Emmerich in there, and Volcano, that's from 1997. So again, a sort of different era. We're going to be breaking down those two films from when we've watched them recently and our reactions to them, whether we've seen them before or whether it's a first-time watch. But before we go into them, I just wanted to get, again, your guys' feelings for just disaster films as a whole. Like I said, why do people enjoy watching the world end? How does it creep into other genres? Like I said, science fiction, kaiju films, Transformers, all of these films kind of then tend to borrow from that. Chris, what's your sort of feelings on the genre and what the appeal of it is?
I find it quite similar to the way people enjoy horror, in the sense that it's that sort of fear of, oh my lord, how could we get away from this? But it's on that larger scale. It's weird. the majority of disaster films are very schlocky. They're very cheesy. Like in the fact that like a horror, it's more of a doom and gloom, and if you get away, it's by the skin of your teeth. With disaster movies, when you survive it, it's like, yes, gosh, yeah, we did it, and it's like man prevails, and there's that sort of like feel good thing about it. There is this sort of bleakness to it, and then there's a sort of chirpiness there as well, which seems almost out of place. I think it is just, again, it's that human fascination with the macabre and the fear of absolute anarchy, because when you get up, everything's quite normal. And then when all this goes wrong, you panic and you start thinking, what would I do? Would I be like this guy? Would I be like John Cusack? And it allows you to sort of step into that sort of world and experience it, even no matter how wild it is. It's like a roller coaster ride, I suppose.
Yeah, and like you said, it is the idea of people being like, oh, well, this, wouldn't happen in real life, so let's see, how it would pan out if it did. And even like said, with real disasters, people, in the moment, people are like, oh my God, that's horrific, or, they might be terrified. But, after it, then it's, some of the most watched stuff you might get on television or YouTube. You get documentaries about how this happened, people, who were victims of it and people who were lost to it, and, like the videos of the disasters themselves. And it's that idea of people like, oh my God, I need to watch to see how this happens, because it's such far away from what we usually see. But at the same time, like you said, it's, the films themselves don't actually go into the real serious, dark aspects of this. They go into the more ridiculous aspects of it. I also love as well how a quick Google search of disaster films brings up the complete randomness that they are, because, you often think they're natural disaster films. So, you're looking at your Poseidons, Twister, The Day After Tomorrow, those type of films. But then, like I said, you got ones like Armageddon, Deep Impact, ones that have got more of a science fiction aspect to them. And then ones like 2012, etc., which are just completely, Geostorm, all of these things which are somewhat plausible, but take it to a completely different realm, and they're like, oh, the entire world rather than just one city, etc. I do love how, like, as well, like, you type in disaster movies into Google, and the top ones are like Independence Day, Transformers, and Titanic 2. Not Titanic, Titanic 2. One of the top, disaster movies on Google, apparently, is like...
Is that disaster in a sense that it was terrible?
I would hope so, yeah. Titanic is there as well, but lower down the Titanic 2, which is interesting. Like you said, we said there with Titanic, it does go into a completely, Titanic 2, more specifically, a different subgenre of these bad disaster movies as well, and let's not forget Birdemic, one of the most infamous of disaster movies.
Yeah, I was gonna bring this up actually, probably when we were going to be talking about 2012, but I noticed on Amazon Prime Video there are just countless terrible low-budget disaster movies. Like, it seems like the most prevalent genre that the Asylum make, whose business model, by the way, seems to be take a popular film and do a slight variation on it so it confuses old people in the supermarket. But yeah, I don't know. I was thinking, we'll probably get it more into this, but what separates those films from the sort of more the Hollywood films, and why do they make them other than what I just said? Why do they make disaster movies? Are they easy to write? What, or is it just that special effects thing again?
I think that there is a very clear reason why they're incredibly easy films to write in many situations, because a lot of what people find gripping about stories tends to be, like the human interest aspect of it. It's just like, will boy get with girl, or will hero defeat villain? This is just a very easy concept of, will they survive? In which case you just write your story with yes, and you can just put in whatever like contrivances you want to ensure people are alive. You also don't have to write a compelling villain, right? You literally just go, the earth is out to get you, deal with it, yo. Because and then just come up with some weird pseudoscience absolute tosh to justify exactly why this is happening in the first place. That's one of the things that I cannot wait to just rip on about some of these films. Just some of the justifications for why disaster is happening in the first place, but also why disaster stops. Just ludicrous.
This mass suicide adhered to the Mayan calendar, which predicts the end of time to occur on the 21st of December of this year. This year.
I thought we'd have more time. So when do we let the people know?
Our mission is to assure the continuity of our species. Wasn't it also decided that people have the right to fight for their lives? No matter what happens, we'll all stay together.
Find out the truth. Search 2012.
Yeah, I specifically chose that trailer because I remembered that the advertising campaign was actively encouraging people to, look into the 2012 conspiracy and be like, yeah, it's real, it's happening. So, that is 2012, which was actually out on also the 13th of November, back in 2009, so not 2012. It is directed by Roland Emmerich, who also brought us films like Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow. It stars John Cusack, who is Jackson Curtis. You've also got Amanda Peet, who is Kate Curtis, and then Chiwetel Ejiofor as Adrian Hemley, Danny Glover as President Wilson, Thandie Newton as Laura Wilson, and weirdly enough, Woody Harrelson as Charlie Frost. And the plot of this one, I had to, specifically quote the synopsis for it because it just made me laugh, was just: a frustrated writer struggles to keep his family alive when a series of global catastrophes threaten to annihilate mankind. I was just like, the way it frames it, just like a frustrated writer, as if he was just there one night and was just like, oh, I can't finish my book. Can anything else get worse? Then he wakes up in the morning like, oh, God's sake, it's the end of the world. So, well, at least I got my book sorted.
It's okay, honey. It's not the end of the world.
This is like rewatching the movie.
For me, the moment where I literally sort of had to go, you've got to be effing kidding me. It's just that scene in the supermarket where I feel like there's something pulling us apart.
See, I thought you were going to say the two guys singing "It's Not the End of the World" on the boat.
That had a level of irony I could just get behind.
yeah, I was the same, yeah.
But that supermarket scene, I was just like, right, I realise that disaster movies have to have, like, fitting moments, but you can't literally be like, cue the punchline of all these people are gonna die.
Yeah, out of curiosity, how many of you guys, was this a first time watch or had seen it before?
This was my first time watching the film at all.
Yeah, it was my first as well.
I saw it, it couldn't have been that long after it came out. So yeah, second viewing after 10 years.
Yeah, I think I saw it like years ago and I had forgotten a lot about it. And like I said, we had to throw in Roland Emmerich in there, somewhere because he is so famous for all the crazy world-ending sort of stuff he likes to do. And a lot of these tropes are visible in these films and have started, to creep into then other movies, like we said, like science fiction ones. So, Kieran, what was your major reaction watching it back again? How do you compare it, like you said, about, the trash we were talking about, or, is it up there with the higher ones?
It's pretty not good, isn't it? Like, it's pretty awful. Yeah, there's a real script problem, I think, just in terms of dialogue. Like you just said, Craig, the sort of cheesy one-liners and just other little things like there's a bit right at the start where the director of the Louvre dies in the tunnel in the car crash, and on the news report they have to mention that it's the same tunnel that Princess Diana died in, as if we, the audience, don't know there's something fishy going on. They have to be like Princess Diana. And there's just nothing else going on in this movie. Like, I kept wanting there to be something. Like, I was thinking, well, what's John Cusack's character's, what's his arc in this movie? His arc is he doesn't pay much attention to his kids, and then he does, and that's it.
Yeah, and he also maybe resents breaking up with his wife, and then conveniently her new boyfriend horrifically dies via like a cog grinder. So he's like, well, that's that problem sorted. I can get back together with my ex-wife now.
I explain why that was one of the worst deaths I've watched in a while. Because he's just there. So he's just there hanging off the edge of this platform. And there's just this back and forth of like, grab my hand. I can't grab your hand. It's just like, you can. You're just not pushing your hand out. And then he's basically slipping down. And then once he gets like the end, he starts scrabbling for his life. Then like it cuts to John Cusack and it cuts back to him. And it's just a hand going down slowly into the grinder. And just like, what a cheap death scene for what is otherwise a really expensive looking movie. I feel like just putting the wah, wah, wah music over the damn thing.
It was like the opposite of the Terminator. Instead of having like the thumbs, like as if the thumbs up would be there, like going down into the cogs or something.
You hear him like scream. You hear him scream when he's going in, and then like when it's the hand, it's just silence.
It's the PG-13 version of a crushing of a human body.
Yeah, essentially.
And conveniently, when we then see those cogs later, no blood.
Just an arm,
yeah,
rotates up.
John Cusack just swimming amongst like bones and eyeballs and stuff.
That's basically my thoughts. Is what I said earlier. Is that it's kind of a vehicle for these special effects, which I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I thought they haven't actually aged all that well either. Obviously spectacular at the time. But I don't know what people think of that.
What makes you say that they haven't aged very well?
There was one scene in particular, and it was the scene where they're escaping the park, Yellowstone Park, and the fireballs are shooting at them and crashing on the ground. And I don't know, maybe I'm not. This is going to sound like the worst humble brag. I was watching it in 4K, and it was something I could just sense that there was like a layer between the explosion and the ground, but I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know. It didn't blow me away in the way that I thought it might do. Some of it's very good, but yeah, that scene in particular, I thought the fireballs looked better in Volcano, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, just that a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting as well, actually, because it's a big challenge the VFX have had to do in recent years. Is like, oh, now people can see things a lot more clearly, so they have to like add a lot more like dust and different things to like, surround things to make things look more realistic. So I think like moments, even though it does look, ultra CGI, is like, the plane going through the buildings and the train falling down, like that entire sequence is just madness. But I was like, okay, this is somewhat impressive, even though, again, some of it, comes across as just like a bunch of people in a car, like, whoa, and they're not actually going anywhere. And especially, I think, in the plane, I think when he was running to the plane, like that was another moment where the hand came up, was that like a throwback to him like grabbing onto the ledge or something? Like, oh, well, his hand made it, but this guy's hand didn't. But, when he was running towards the plane and she was there like, come on, you can make it. Like that looked really like green screen. Like, you could tell again, I think some of it was due to the acting as well. I think actually the kids were more realistic in that moment. I think like Roland Emmerich really needed to tell the woman, like, it is the end of the world, by the way. Can you please act like that? She was just kind of like, come on, quick, get in. We're off to, McDonald's. You don't want to be late.
It's only 2012.
Yeah.
For me, the scene that I will happily defend in terms of like visual quality is, I don't know whether just because it was set at night, so it was a lot harder to basically tell like CGI from reality. But it was basically the tsunami that destroyed the White House, as well as just like you have the like battleship that basically is like tilting on top of and crashes down on like the president. I thought that was probably fine, but I can see to some degree that there are definitely times where if you look at the humans directly, then look at the actual action around them, it's quite obvious that there's what's going on.
And you also get that like awkward scene at that moment where they just cut to the president just there laying there as if they've all been like, oh, what's going on? Like, they're just woken up randomly in like a pile of ash, and then he just, again, it looks like it's on a set or something, and then he just like gets back up then just to be killed immediately again. I was just like, that the pacing and the placement of those scenes was very odd. I didn't realize until watching that trailer that ship was called like John F. Kennedy, and I was just like, wow, that's Roland Emmerich made quite a lot of political statements in this film. Like you said, the Diana thing, when that happened, I was like, so is he expressing that he is definitely in on this theory that she was like assassinated? And now like this is again, he's just like, yeah, you know what?
I'm also looking forward to the idea that warship inadvertently kills Lee Harvey Oswald.
Exactly. Like, is he just like, it's the ghost of Kennedy back for revenge? See,
that is a movie I'd watch.
What was your overall thoughts, Craig? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the silliness?
Words cannot describe how much I hated this film. Sorry, but right. So a very quick comparison that I can make between the two films, and I think that this definitely dictates my enjoyment. It is really hard for me to give any sense of emotional crap when here is a disaster going on in the world. We cannot stop it no matter what. All we can hope is that we can try and live. I'm just like, cool. I don't know how much I can really be invested, especially considering I don't know how much your survival is going to be possible in this world where apparently everything is just crushing, and your goal is get to these ships, which you think are spaceships, at which point I'm just like, pass. But then it turns out they're just boats, and I'm just there thinking, you're going to live in the ocean. I just had no investment. I just also just in the event that you could even still live on that planet, I'm not sure I want to at that point, because insofar as you have to be responsible, and they literally say we care about the survival of humanity. Why? If you have to literally rebuild civilization from the ground up at that point, I'm not cut out for it, to be honest. Like, I'm happy to say I'm not that strong. And we've had this discussion several times before, David, where if I just don't believe in the core premise of a film, I'm not going to enjoy it. Like with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, do I think the dinosaurs should survive? No. That the entire film is, we want to get these dinosaurs to survive. I'm not invested. Should the human race continue when literally the Mayan culture is like prophecy of this world is going to end? Should humanity try and continue? I'm going to say the odds are stacked against us to the point that I don't think it's worth it. but then at the end of the film, and I realise this is going to be a bit of a spoiler for Chris, who wasn't able to see all of 2012. The disaster just stops at one point.
Yeah,
like,
that's
my
favourite bit.
Yeah, it just stops.
I'm not gonna lie. I sort of predicted that was going to happen.
Yeah, but this next clincher, this is the next clincher that winds me up a bit, because it was just like, so it just stops after like a month. All the rest of the world, they've also started a new calendar, by the way. They basically go day 27, month 1, year 0001. It just stops. And what's happened where all of the Earth has been crumbling, bear in mind what they said was that the core of the Earth melted. How does a ball of molten rock melt to the point that it still survives? But apparently Africa has risen from the waves, and now they're going to make a home on Africa. At which point I went, great, recolonize Africa. That went so well the first time, guys.
Such a bizarre choice.
And then the Earth zooms out as if like showing Africa, and I'm just like, what is your message here? What is your message that Africa is the key to our salvation?
Especially after all the kind of weird, like, oh, billionaires, funded this and all this kind of stuff, it's just like, I don't know if any of those people are worth, like building, because they never really make clear, because he's like, oh, we had to get like, the right amount of people, like scientists, intelligent people, teachers, and then like Adrian just kind of goes like, well, it looks like, all these people just bought their way on. And I'm like, well, how much of it is people bought their way on? Because you don't see anybody who is actually of scientific educational use.
The funny thing about that scene is he's basically talking about eugenics. And then the chief scientific officer goes, oh, what? These people pay. Eugenics I'm fine with, but these people are paying for their ticket.
Yeah. It's a bit worrying where your moral line is literally racial purity versus capitalist concerns.
Can I just come back on that Africa thing? Because something's just occurred to me, and I don't want to be seen as defending this film, but is it the fact that we started in Africa, and now we're going back to is that what they were trying to go for?
I think they did say that in the film. I think they went, oh, back to where it all began. I think that was something I think they did say that at some point, but
I must have missed that.
That's the literal equivalent of the end of the second Pokemon movie, where the villain goes, he sees like a Mew card on the ground, picks it up, goes, how it all began and how it will begin again. At which point I'm just like, great, I can't wait to see 2012 2 4024. I don't know.
I think, like you said, though, it is what has happened to the Earth, because you can buy into sort of like when it's just, oh, global warming, everything is flooded or something. Oh, there's day after tomorrow, everything is frozen. But this is just such a hodgepodge of different things going on. It's like, I thought it was kind of like the film was like Dante's Peak, then becomes like Independence Day, then becomes Poseidon Adventure. It was like all these different end of the world movies all in one. It was crazy.
The only thing I like about this film's existence is that it inspired an incredibly funny Dara O'Brien comedy routine, because obviously he studied physics at university and he does a lot of science programs with Brian Cox. He explains the core premise of apparently what is happening, and just basically just rips into the core premise, which is the idea of the neutrinos have mutated and they're heating up the planet. And he just explains, do you not understand how many thousands of years that needs to have happened? And yet apparently in the timeline of this movie, it has happened twice within the space of like a couple months. No, when the neutrinos mutate, you all just instantly die. Because they're microwaves.
I also love from that as well, you reminded me when we were talking about like who lives, who dies, who like goes on the boat, etc. I just don't like the message as well if they were just like, the guy who like figured this out died today and all this. And I was like, I get what they're trying to say, that, like everyone can be lost, like, it all happened at once, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, of everybody on the Earth, that would be the one guy they were like, we need to get this guy on this boat. Because if he's the guy who understands it the most, you would think he would be like number one priority to get on there. Like the fact that Chiwetel Ejiofor's character is just pretty much like, I don't know, I'm guessing, like they're literally just like, tell us what's going on here. And all these scientists are just like, well, it might be this. And, oh, well, something's just immediately happened. Oh, that's what's happening. And it's like, that's what's the crazy thing about it, is that in other disaster movies you usually have a volcano expert, a weather expert, you have some form of like semblance of what's going on from what they're saying, but in this one they're just kind of like, I don't know.
It's a good point. They talk about having some of the best scientific minds in the world on those vessels, and yet they don't pick up the guy who presumably will know when this disaster ends before you can just make your like bullshit predictions about, I think it's okay to go outside now, guys.
Yeah. I would have preferred to see like a few years, like, if they were going to go down that line, rather than it just be like a few days, like we said. It's hard to believe that it only was a few days before this. Like,
well, it's to justify that ridiculous decision at the end, isn't it? The thing about him wanting to open the gates and Oliver Platt rather sensibly saying, no, there's not enough resources. Was it?
Yeah, true.
Like it's so that the ships don't go off into the distance, and you're left thinking, well, they're just going to die, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
They're just going to die in their very nice rooms.
And the fact that they actually say when they open the gates, like, we know there's a lot of you, please be careful. And you, at which point you've already seen them like hitting each other over ledges to get on the boat. So when they're coming out onto the balconies, which don't appear to have fences, I'm feeling like they're going to start tipping over the edge of these balconies again.
He goes into that room and he's like, 10 people could fit in here. And I was like, really? Like, that might get a bit tiresome after 6 months.
Chris, from what you just look baffled by like being described the finale of this. What was your reaction to like the beginning? Because like I said, it's such a different film at the beginning. You got Woody Harrelson, on the radio. You got Yellowstone, all these crazy things happening.
I just found myself I was watching it and I was just thinking, at a certain point, my brain just started to switch off. And
I think that's the
idea. But not in the sort of switch off and just absorb it. In the sense of it was almost as if I was starting to fall asleep, but I was still focusing on it. It was like stuff was happening, and then I just couldn't get through it. Like it was such a slog. But the main reason I couldn't get through it, I basically was like, how long is this film? The film's over 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, no. No. That is too long. And the worst part about it is, from the sounds of things, they still managed to cram too much into it. It's weird how a film that can be too long still have too much happening in it as well. Like, it's the wrong side of 2.5 hours. And the thing with most disaster movies, they're usually a decent length, because you can't take that much punishment, because at a certain point you're just like, this is not nice. It's like when you watch, I keep going back to horror, but like there's like two types of horror films that you can have. There's the standard ones where it's like, oh my god, this is crazy, this is scary, and then it levels out. Or you can just have ones that are just relentless and awful. And this was just like a film that had so much happening where it was like, and you just, at a point, I just had to sort of get away from it. And now I'm hearing about how the story goes. I'm just like, this sounds baffling. It just sounded absolutely baffling. It's like they saw The Day After Tomorrow and went, that plus all of this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's literally the same guy. He basically goes, I wasn't satisfied with The Day After Tomorrow. I know I can make it more insane. Just the fact that he decided to make one of the plot points. We need to get a plane. Okay, we've got a plane. What do we do now? We need to get a better plane. Oh, God.
No, but let's all say the best line from the film, which is linked to that, which is, wow, that's a big plane. It's Russian, eh?
I hated him the most. He was the worst actor, and also had like the dumbest death. And also, we got to start talking about the tropes now, which is the random dog. So, thankfully, the film makes the decision to let the dog live, but make almost anyone who has ownership of this dog die.
It's a weird thing in disaster films, isn't it? It happens in Volcano, it happens in Independence. There's always a dog that has to get out of it, and they're like, come on, and you're just like, it is endearing, because you're like, come on, little dog, you can make it. But I just loved how this dog, usually it is a retriever or something that looks quite alert and quite happy, but this dog was just one of those that's got like a little dip tongue out the side of his mouth, and at the end they're just like, yeah, we made it. It's just literally doesn't care. It's just like it's just looking off to the distance, like whatever.
Had the ingenuity to run over some electrical cables to get to the ship.
Yeah, but that's where I felt again, where Chris was saying about, it's again like with horror, sometimes it gets too much, and that's where I felt that this film. The interesting thing about disaster films is that obviously horrible things are happening and people are like dying and stuff, but you're seeing it from like a bird's eye view, so you don't really get the scale of it. But usually you might get some idea of like, oh god, there's people in those cars, there's people drowning or whatever, like Titanic, you see all those bodies that, like floating there. It's like, it's the grim, like, reality of that. But in this, it felt like I saw, like, just a model village. It never seemed to me like I was actually watching the end of the world. It just looked like LA had been evacuated and, like, the entire thing was falling down. The only civilization was, like, the two old women in that car that John Cusack was getting annoyed by, and then, like, the people in the airport, and that was about it. And that's the weird thing about it, is, like, and then later on with the dog, the whole dog thing, it was like with, I think it was Gordon, wasn't it? The guy who was, like, the boyfriend. Okay, at the beginning, he was a bit of a dick, he was just like, oh yeah, I'm better dad, but throughout it, they did make it quite a redeeming character. He piloted the plane. He was quite reluctant to pilot the bigger plane, but he did, and he helped them out, and he was quite nice then to the father later on, etc. And the son talked about what a nice guy he is. And then what's the reward for that? He dies needlessly. And then the same with the Russian girlfriend. She had that, like, moment of vindication, like, yeah, I got on the boat without you. And then she drowns. I was like, why? Why do you have to kill these characters, Roland? He was like, no, only the nice American family may live at the end.
I think it's interesting what you were saying before about how it's kind of almost like a parody. It's almost, being so ridiculous, it's a bit silly. I think there's a bit of that, but I think if that was a real aim, it just doesn't go far enough. It's almost like they want it to be both. They want it to be this grim thing because it's a grim subject matter. It's the end of the world, but they also want to have a laugh. And so, yeah, they sort of end up on the tightrope of, like, we can't show people in genuine despair, although that drowning scene was pretty rough, but we can't have, like, randoms screaming into the abyss, seeing their children, you can't have it, because 2 seconds later John Cusack's going to make a quip about his ex-wife or something. It's a weird movie. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, somebody wrote this.
I just find it impressive that Seth Rogen was able to make a much better end of the world movie involving rich people than this supposedly incredible epic.
Very true, very true. And it's the fact, like, I do enjoy some of the, like, ridiculousness of it sometimes, because it does get so, like, the plane, like, when, the cars and they're like bouncing out of the plane, and it's there, like, flipping through the train and the buildings. Like I said earlier, there are a lot of tropes which sometimes you just have to laugh at. Like, even, like, the boyfriend to the Russian girl, who's like his accent, I was like, I can't imagine that you were serious about this. Like, the guy is literally, I was just like, there's no way on earth that this guy is actually Russian. And I was like, no way would anybody be on set be like, yeah, that's really good. That's like, he was just like everything he says is like, you must get to the door immediately. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, you're not Constantine from Muppets, Most Wanted. It's just, it's the most ridiculous, so again, it's like him bigging up these, like, nationalities and this kind of stuff. And then, of course, you have the whole, like, America, I am, President Wilson, and all this kind of stuff as well. And that, kind of lapses into things then, like we said before, like Transformers and stuff. They go with the whole, the White House, and, like, oh, look, it's Air Force One. Like, was anyone else, like, I don't know if that was meant to be a bigger moment. I was like, when Air Force One was coming at them on the boat, I was like, so? I was like, if it was like the Statue of Liberty or something, I would have been like, oh, wow, but it was like, it's not that big a, plane.
It's literally a plane that they landed near those ships. Of course it was going to be washed up in this tsunami.
Yeah, but just the way the guy said, oh, it's Air Force One, and I have to say as well, my most favorite ridiculous, again, Roland Emmerich does this a lot, ridiculous characters, but the British guy with, like, the dicky bow and, like, the frizzled hair, and my favorite moment in the entire film is just when, what are they trying to do, where they're, like, trying to make it so that they get all the passengers on board, or they're trying to make it so that they can go help with the gear thing, and he takes his cane from that guy and goes, don't make another move, and I'm like, as if the guy just has to go, moves the cane out of the way and presses, what was he gonna do?
There's a vital part of that line that you've missed out, David, that makes it so much better.
Yeah.
Don't you make another move, young man.
Yeah, that's 2012, the film, not the year, which, like I said, is indicative of a lot of the, stereotypes of disaster movies. But we'll now go on to a different representation of disaster films, which is from, the 90s, which is from a different era, but a lot of the same sort of themes appearing. But, maybe there's some improvements with this one, and maybe some more crazy stuff. And they just focus on the one sort of terror in this, not like every element known to man, like in 2012. So this one as well, guys, watch out for. It has one of my favorite ever, like, redundant voiceover lines, which is just the most anti-epic thing, but yet it's said by the trailer voice guy, so it makes it sound epic, but like in reality, you're like, that's not epic. And also it has the best tagline for a film at the end ever.
Good morning, Southern California. We're heading for a high of 75 degrees.
Didn't take long to get our first SIG alert this morning.
This morning's shaker surprised all of us here in the Fox 11 newsroom.
This was a small to moderate earthquake.
Epicenter in magnitude is in for a 10 spot.
Epicentered in Palmdale.
If a dam breaks and the mayor calls, I don't want you telling O'Rourke went fishing.
Okay, we don't pull her off the slopes for even a 4.9.
Gas explosion in the MacArthur Park area. Rescue crews.
Public Works lost 7 guys. What's going on? 3 guys stood on the storm drain. They hit a steam pipe and got scalded. Steam did that?
Steam doesn't chart tissue like this.
Methane? Something else.
We got a problem. Number 4 trend westbound. Temperature on board reads 20 degrees above normal.
That lake was 62 degrees yesterday. Today it's up to 68.
That's a sunny day.
It takes a geological event to heat 1 million gallons of water for 12 hours.
What is a geological event?
Mike, come in. What's going on?
It's tremendous heat. This is no good. Get out of here. Get off the train. Get off the train.
Please do not leave your home.
Somebody tell me what the hell is going on.
There's got to be something feeding this. When it hits black, it's gonna punch through.
You mean erupt?
Yeah. It's just exploded.
It's going crazy. The fire's popping off all over the city.
The west side is 1 million people.
There are gonna be 1 million dead people if we don't evacuate. When Mount St. Helens blew, the force was greater than the Hiroshima bomb.
Listen up, let me tell you what's south of us. No more museums, no more department stores, just homes.
Moses couldn't reroute this. It's everywhere.
It's not enough time. I need a demolitions team. Everybody out! LAPD, National Guard. Put as many people in front of it as it takes. If we turn and run now, they're going to be defenseless. You don't like my plan? That's good. Give me another plan, but don't tell me we're backing out. We're going to take this thing to the ocean.
In a city where anything can happen. On April 25th, it will.
Please stay calm.
The coast is toast, guys. The coast is toast.
Already I'm in a much better mood. 1997 just understands how you make a film like this watchable.
That film trailer had one of my favorite trailers of that late 90s, early 2000s. The metal clang. Cling, 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 playing over the score. It was one of my favorite tropes. You had it in all the films. And, like, you're right, that last voiceover as well, and that last bit is sort of like, God, just cherry on top.
Yeah.
Anything
can happen.
It will.
So yeah, this is Volcano, which came out in 1997 on the 25th of April. It's directed by Mick Jackson, stars Tommy Lee Jones as Mike Rourke, Anne H. as Dr. Amy Barnes, Gabby Hoffman as Kelly Rourke, Don Cheadle as Emmett Reese, Keith David as Lieutenant Ed Fox, and Jacqueline Kim as Dr. Jay Calder. And yeah, like we said, a very, indicative of the 90s just through that trailer, as we mentioned. And yeah, I think from what Craig said as well, is possibly a lot better time of watching, especially because it's like an hour and 40 minutes as opposed to 2 hours and I was thinking that as I was like, it's mad how this is like literally almost half of the length of 2012. So what were your guys' thoughts on Volcano? Again, same thing as before. Who had seen this before? Who hadn't? I hadn't seen this one before personally.
I saw this probably 10, 15 years ago, maybe. Like a long time ago.
I thought I had seen this movie, but I hadn't.
It was Dante's Peak.
Yeah, I think so.
I recall like catching scenes of it. It would have been on like Channel 5.
Yeah, it is that kind of film, isn't it?
And then you're scrolling through and you just see like the chaos and everything. And you're like, ooh, this film's got lava in it. And then I probably just skipped over because but yeah. I suppose my first proper full viewing was this one. So
yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because like I said, this one is just, rather than the world, it is just Los Angeles. It's just this one threat, the volcano. It focuses on a accident, emergency response team. So it's more linked. It isn't just like, they still go down the trope of, and I don't know what it is about disaster films and divorced dads. Like, why is that a thing? Like,
I know.
It's like, apparently you can't have a happy family in a disaster film. It's just like, because it's the 2012 was the exact same storyline as like War of the Worlds. Just the son isn't happy, but the daughter's okay with him, and it was just I get so sick of this. But
pretty sure the only disaster film I know where the family is already happy together is probably The Impossible. And that's because it's based on a real story. So you can't be like, we're all on holiday together, despite the fact that the mother and dad are divorced.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say Independence Day, but I believe Jeff Goldblum's character is going through the similar thing as well. So it's a trope that has existed in disaster films for as long as I can remember. The divorced, and then they end up coming. It's wonderful that it's almost like saying, what will help this couple get together? A cataclysmic event. That's what'll make you realize that you love each other. The end of the world.
But the difference in this situation is it's helping push him towards somebody else. Although it is actually refreshing that Amy Barnes and what's Tommy Lee Jones's character called again?
Mike Rourke.
Yeah, the Mike Rourke. Wow, so close to an innuendo. It's actually refreshing that they don't get together at the end, because obviously you can definitely tell there's like tension between them, but all it basically comes down to is the head tilt on the shoulder, which, let's face it, if you have just solved a volcanic crisis, I think a hug is perfectly acceptable.
In both these films, the romantic subplot is signalled by another character saying to one of the characters, "I saw the way you were looking at them."
Yeah.
Which is seems like a real cheap way to chip people together.
Because in 2012, I thought that, and that was really bad timing, that they were just talking about like the contingency plan. And he was like, by the way, the president's daughter. And I was like, this is not the time, man. For God's sake, what the hell? So again,
father has just died.
Yeah. Well, even before that, he was, when like he first met her, he was like, I saw the look you were giving her, and he was just like, what on earth?
I know it's a bit of a difficult time for all of us, but you two, just
do you know what's worse about all of that? Like when you have that, I saw the way you were looking at it. What? With genuine fear for her safety in the middle of a cataclysmic disaster? Yeah, don't you look at most people like that?
I saw the way you were looking at the president's daughter,
I don't look at many people in the middle of a cataclysmic disaster and go, I hope you fucking die.
As if he's going to look at like the president's daughter with disdain, like, oh, bloody hell, president's daughter. Like, it's going to be some admiration there, surely.
But yeah, back to the volcano.
Which, interesting point about the film, it's not technically a volcano, is it?
No.
No, that was the thing I noticed. As the film was progressing, I was like, this isn't technically a volcano. Like, it's volcanic.
Yeah, the news report definitely made, they were just like, experts are calling this a volcano, as if like they'd never heard of one before as well. They were like, what is that? It's some kind of fire. It's almost like a liquidy fire. Is lava? Oh. I was just like,
no, it's when they describe it as the tar has caught fire and is moving. Like, there's a name for that, guys. Although going back to my geography A level, technically the tar pit could be a volcano. It's just it's not a very traditional one.
I see.
Because obviously you can get underwater volcanoes, right? And then there's literally just a gap in the Earth's surface in which the magma is able to rise out.
I think it's just because the only point of the film where there's like a major eruption is towards the end. Like, there's obviously like there's little ones as the film progresses, but I feel like I think it's as they're building up to, it's like it'll erupt, and that's the point where it's like, I see.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense of a volcanic, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I thought it was actually going to be a volcano literally rises from the center of the city or something like that. I just loved it when they had to try and block it off and they used the bus, and it cut to that shot of like the policeman like shooting out the tires. And I was like, I kind of want to take that and like edit it and take out the bus and go to the footage of the lava as if they're shooting the lava. I just love it if they're like, like kind of like, is it in The Simpsons where Chief Wiggum's is there like shooting like a ghost or something like that? It's like that kind of thing. Like, stop there.
Yeah, the virus cloud.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, actually, speaking about police though, I think there's an elephant in the room, airlifted into the room. Oh.
I don't know if you can see this on my notes, but I've written
Yes.
weird racism subplot.
Yeah, this ties into this. So I just want to make clear that Jerry is not a good man. There is a line in this film in which a police officer commends his fellow officer by saying, "You're a good guy, Jerry." No, you're not. And don't make out that he is.
Do you know what's really frustrating about that scene, though, is it's actually quite good right up until that moment, because he does the right thing and he sends the police car, whatever, the fire, whatever. He sends the thing over, and then the African American gentleman and the police officer kind of share this look of like, this isn't over sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite an amazing moment. And then the guy, the other cop, touches him on the shoulders. "You're a good man." What? No, you no.
Yeah. And it's as if the film wants you to think that at the end of it. It's just like, no.
right.
The bit that got me going was obviously when they've basically just saved the day and they destroyed that building to create the vent, and then they're trying to find that boy's father. It's like, what does he look like? It's just their faces. They're all the same because their faces are covered in ash. And I was like, are you joking? You are literally using a volcano to basically go, by the way, guys, we're all the same if you think about it. Just cover your faces in ash. No, that's called blackface if you think about it.
It was really weird because, again, I was just like, is this a thing of the filmmaker? I was like, no, this is like a white guy who's made this. I was like, what the hell is he? It's just weird that they like shoehorned that in there because, again, it was nothing to do with the film apart from that weird like police subplot. But yeah, that Jerry is a good man thing. I was just like, no.
Is that all that America needs in 2020, the year of the riots against the police because of George Floyd? It just needs a volcano to erupt in Los Angeles, and then everyone will just accept that racism is stupid? Is that all it's going to take? Because I would have thought that COVID would have done that for humanity already, but no. Does it just need to be a cataclysmic magma disaster?
I mean, going by the way COVID's going, I don't even think you'd have magma deniers. You would have lava deniers. It'd be a situation where it's like, you're saying that we can't go out and go anywhere near the lava, but I think I can go near the lava. And that's what it would be like.
It's just like ice water, it's just like, it's not that, it's just some hot, warm tea. It's, they're emphasizing it.
What's really stupid is that people go near the lava all the time. And I'm just like, do you not understand how hot lava is? Like, The fact that they literally lift people over the lava using a ladder, I'm just like, what are you doing? That's what burns them to death. But no, it's only the closest part of their body to the lava that starts burning, like their feet. And the guy in the train who literally jumps into the lava and catapults the person out.
Oh, yeah, that's quite grim, yeah.
Yeah, the way he goes, I actually was like, oh. And all his mates just watching him melt away, like.
But the thing is, like realistically, because of the heat of lava, they should have all been dead before then.
Mm.
That's the physics this film loves to just ignore. It's just how close people can get to lava.
Lava is terrifying. Like, it is genuinely terrifying. And, like, that's one of the things about this film when I'm seeing the lava is... And obviously, they're quite fortunate they have, like, you know, very resistant shoes. But, like, there are points where I'm watching it, I'm like, honestly, get the hell away from there. Like, that bit where she gets... what does she get, like, 2nd-degree burn?
Yeah.
From a little spit of lava? I'm surprised she didn't lose her damn leg.
Yeah, the fact that she just, like, her leg goes up in flames. She's like, Dad, help me. I'm on, you know, like she says, like, I'm on fire. It's got me or something. It's like, no.
Hurts. It hurts.
Yeah. It's like, no, do something about it yourself. But it's also just bizarre. Like, I was thinking in my head, because it is so theatrical. And, like, there was times, like I said, when the police were there and, like, the firemen and, like, you know, all the news reporters are talking about it. And it's like Tommy Lee Jones is, like, you know, the Chuck Norris of this situation. I kind of felt as if it was building up to him being like, we've defeated the lava. And then the lava would, like, rise up and be like, no, Tommy, I am, you know, like, it seemed like it's...
I am your lava.
Maybe I've watched too many, like, fantasy films, you know, or I've watched, like, Disney's Hercules too many times. It's like there's a lava monster, but...
One thing I want to point out as well is, like, some there are way too many reporters there.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When they are building the barricade,
like on the wall as well. They're there, like, on it.
And they're there like, we don't know if this is going to work or not.
Like, seriously, you guys are taking up far too much space right now. You need to leave. Oh, but we need to capture the news. Trust me, they know. The LA knows right now.
They have helicopters, for crying out loud. Get in one of those.
Was the guy in the car on the phone, was he a reporter where he was like just detailing what was happening? I felt as if he was literally going to be like going to go, okay, it's around my car. I am now on fire, John. I am now, like, lit on fire. My body is melting as I speak. It seemed like people were going to be doing that at some point, because the way the people, like, spontaneously combusted, if, like, you know, when there were people, like, literally rolling on the floor and stuff, I was like, somebody just gonna come over, like, how can I help? Like, dude, you're on fire. Oh yeah, I don't know what to do. You know,
that guy in the car, there was a point where I thought that he was going to be like a running gag, and, like, at certain points the film would just cut back to him and he'd be like, yeah, the building is falling. Oh, it's falling down. Oh, it's if anything were falling, it would be this building. And at one point, I was just like, get out of your car, hang up your phone, and either jump into the lava or run away, because you are annoying.
He reminds, for another Simpsons reference, he reminds me of Kent Brockman, who was like, a large bear-like creature, most likely a bear.
You know what I kept thinking of, though, when people were, like, jumping on cars and things like that? I was like, is this just the most realistic game of the floor is lava I've ever seen? I was like, there's that Netflix show in which they literally amp up the drama of people literally melting into whatever that is, like orange flavored water or something. But, like, no, this is, like, you know, real, the floor is lava.
I will say, though, the fact that they decide to basically premise the story around, like, the disaster response team and basically just actually having strategies to fight the volcano, for me, just elevated the film like a hell of a lot and actually just made it engaging. Because insofar as it's literally, we can stop this volcano, how do we do it? And just watching all of those strategies, that actually made it really engaging and actually just made me give any semblance of a damn, because it isn't, will we survive the volcano? It's literally, will we stop the volcano? Yeah, so when you're just watching all of the explosions, and, like, even the scene with that guy who has to sacrifice himself knowing for the plan and just look at each other, it's just like, this is really compelling stuff at this point.
Yeah. Well, there was the bit as well towards the end where they were doing the fuses, and there's that one guy who gets trapped. His legs.
Yeah, that's the guy I mean. Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I agree. There were parts of this film that I was genuinely like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. One of the weird tropes of like disaster films as well. Another one is the large cast of characters, and like this film did have quite a big array of characters that some of them felt quite incidental at certain points, and you almost felt like, hey, you probably didn't need that person. Like, but one of my favorite characters, and it was the doctor's husband.
Oh,
like that douchebag who's got like, this is my building. Look at my building. Got a nice building. And then he's there like, what are you doing helping all these people? You shouldn't help these people. They're strangers. They're dirty. They're smelly. What are you doing? And then at one point, she's just like, this man's going into cardiac arrest. I'm out of here. I was like, wow.
The way she rejects him is my favorite rejection I've seen in a film in a while, which is just, you haven't answered me. I always said, come with me or we're done. It's like, I am answering you, and carries on with her work. I was like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
The disappointing thing about that character is just the fact that you don't see his reaction to his building being destroyed, which I thought was the whole point of seeing that character being a douche for however long, is that we get to see him going, oh no, my building. But we don't. It's a really odd choice.
I would have loved for somebody to say to him at some point, he's like, what are you doing with all these dirty people? Da, 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 da. And she just turn around, or somebody turn around to him and go, that's my job. I am a doctor. This is what I do on a daily basis. Like, what are you on about, kind of thing. But that's where you do get those characters who just come across as unrealistic. But yeah, I felt the Volcano was a lot better in that, whereas these Roland Emmerich films, like, they specifically go, so say in 2012, when we talked about emotion with those characters who, like, you know, died with the building. I think one of the only, like, good emotional moments in 2012 is when the father gets told by his son, you know, where he's, like, saying about his, you know, he's like, oh, Dad, it's happening. And, you know, he's the musician and he's, like, crying. I thought that was really good. But it was just those characters were introduced really randomly. They were just, like, you were suddenly like, oh, we're on this boat and there's these two old guys. Who are you? And then Roland Emmerich does that quite a lot with his films. He's like, oh, hey, you know, there's like this guy over here and this guy in, you know, the Midwest. And whereas here, they only did it as a purpose to, like, you know, they showed the train driver because then you just saw him later on. He wasn't like he was a character. He was, or like a big character saving people or anything. So I felt that they all introduced them a bit more with a bit more purpose anyway. They were all just a part of the disaster. They were just civilians that you see, kind of like, I think they do it in Sully, that film with, like, you know, the Miracle on the Hudson, where they sort of show the passengers coming on the plane and you sort of see their personalities a bit, and then you see how they integrate into the story later on. So they kind of do that aspect rather than being like, you know, trying to shoehorn in this random storyline with them, which is why the boyfriend and the doctor thing was a bit weird, because you were just like, the doctor was introduced fine, but why did you have to introduce this, like, oh, there, you know, she's with a douchebag kind of thing? It's like, who cares? You know, what does it actually equate to in the end? So, you know, I think that's a good point about Volcano, and also just the fact that, you know, I think Tommy Lee Jones does, like, drive this film. I think it shows, again, like, compared to somebody like John Cusack, who's just this, like, bumbling family man who's just, like, stumbling along things. Tommy Lee Jones is like an active part of it. He's like, you know, he literally is just like, how can I help? How can I do this? He's just there, like, literally drilling into the ground, pulling people out of, like, fire trucks. And that's a great part of his character, is that, you know, you're supporting him. You're with him the entire time. Chris?
Yeah, I really liked Tommy Lee Jones in this film. Like, I don't know, because his role, he just seemed to play it perfectly well. And, yeah, like, he was very efficient. And, you know, he was jumping in and diving in, and, like, I just really enjoyed his character. There wasn't this sense of, like, and I know they had the divorced parent trope and all that, but there wasn't this whole, like, they didn't spend, like, time watching him lamenting the fact that he's a divorcee, and like, there was a scene where he had the argument on the phone with his wife, and he just got back to work, and you sort of were like, oh, I sort of get that. But I liked that they didn't bog you down with, like, the struggle. They didn't have, like you said in 2012, a scene of, like, we're breaking apart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That he was very, like, in the moment, and I really liked that about him. Same with a lot of the characters in that film. There was like I think the one that felt the most out of place was that douchebag character, because even though his building gets destroyed, as was said, like you never see that sort of comeuppance.
Tommy Lee Jones also has some great lines, like that great trailer one, which was the if you have a better plan, then tell me it. But this is the one we got. Like that's a great moment as well.
Yeah, I would argue the casting across the board in this film was really strong. I can't think of it. I can't think of anyone apart from that incident where I didn't like the performance. I also just enjoy. I mean, I just like Don Cheadle and like Keith David. I just enjoy seeing them in a variety of roles, or just bringing them in some shape together. Just watching them, especially watching Keith David and Tommy Lee Jones banter off each other. Just that sort of like, because they're both quite demanding actors in that sense. So just having those. And just that in and of itself just hyped up a lot of the tension of this film. Although one thing I really want to talk about with this film is that obviously you have this film where, say, like, bear in mind, they've managed to come up with a strategy that basically vents the volcano safely and basically puts all the lava into the sea. So there's still like loads of fire and lava all over the place. And going into the end credits, what song did they choose? What song would you have over a situation like that with things? It's Randy Newman's "I Love LA." It's a ridiculously upbeat song. It's just a like jaunty guitar number, and I'm just like, why this song?
That was so jarring.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
I did love it because it like you're watching this film throughout. Like, do they know what they're doing? Are they into this kind of thing? And that goes to show that they were like, yep, we're just going with it. And that is just pure reminder of that. It was so weird, so jarring, and that song. All I think of when I hear that song as well is the Bean movie when he's going around LA. So that's what makes me think of that as well. And I was just like, this is so strange.
I can't remember. I actually can't remember. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. But I guess it could be worse. It could be Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah. It is just the way it comes in, because it's like the shot of the volcano and it's like zooming out and it's like so quick. But yeah, so random.
There's just a few little things that age this movie. I think there's some slow motion shots, and I don't know the technical term as to why a slow motion shot from the 90s looks worse than a slow motion shot today. And they're put in at really odd moments, like when he jumps off the car and it like makes it look like this. And we're probably all just ruined by Marvel movies where Captain America's bicep curling a helicopter or whatever, but Tommy Lee Jones, I've never jumped off a car holding a person. I bet it's quite difficult. But they put that moment in slow motion as if this is like the big epic moment, and it just comes across a bit pedestrian.
And then later on, they sort of have that guy holding another man do it, and then just be like, "No, I failed."
But the effects are, generally pretty good, and I guess they are mostly practical effects. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's knowing your limitations as well, isn't it? Again, it's like with 2012, like, oh, everything's crumbling, everything's happening. It's like, whereas again, this works a bit better in the sense that it's like, it's only LA, it's only these certain areas, it's only these certain streets, which I think like works a lot better for it as well, because it's not, like we said before, you don't get the idea of like, is anybody dying? It just seems like an abandoned city. You are seeing lots of people who are suffering and, who are like victims of it. But like you said, without it being too like grim and dark, etc. But I also like Craig as well. I loved like Don Cheadle in that. I loved his line like, Moses couldn't reroute this shit. that was a great line.
Don Cheadle, I think he is part of that secret vampire club with Paul Rudd.
Yeah, I thought that. As Tommy, especially when you've got Tommy Lee Jones, who has genuinely aged, like very, harshly.
The thing is, as well, a few days before this, I just watched Boogie Nights that also had Don Cheadle in it, and that was, I believe, 1990. Still looks the same. How does he do it? And it was incredible. Like, but yeah, I really liked his characters. I thought some of the main characters, the people that were linked with
like the response.
What were they called?
Yeah, there was some like emergency response team or something.
Yeah, I really liked that group. They were really good. I enjoyed the sort of the banter and the thing. And when Don Cheadle's character comes in and he takes over and he's got the hat on and he starts taking command of it, I really enjoyed that.
It goes to show that had a better script, doesn't it? That they were able to pull that off, I think.
Well, I think the difference with the humour with these films is that Volcano's humour comes from the characters, and the characters are saying things that those characters would say, rather than it just being a punchline to maybe follow or be a preamble to a big crack in the floor or whatever. Like it's very on the nose, whereas they're a bit, I guess they're a bit more grounded in Volcano, and the humour comes from those characters reacting as normal people would.
Yeah, like in 2012, they have like that crack at the beginning, and the surfer dude's like, "Oh man," or something like that, and you're like, "Oh God," so, it's really cheesy. I did have to like. I also appreciated like, I think it's like it's either Anne Hitch or Hetchy. So it was nice that we had like this female like doctor, and that she also had like another female assistant. So like that, that was quite a nice different dynamic to have. And that she knew what she was talking about. Like, I love that she said, like, I do know something, I just don't know with any certainty yet. I thought that was a great, like, response to, when people are like, oh, prove it or whatever. And they always have to make that thing of like, oh, well, if you just let me do this, I was like, that's a good response to actually say, like, no, I do know it. I just need to actually make exactly sure that this is the case kind of thing, which is a good thing to say in, a disaster film, especially because there's usually the idea of like, see, I was right. But that did also lead to one of the most bizarre moments, and just like, again, like where they're commenting on LA and the whole like news report stuff and things that happen in disasters. So looting came up, and like Craig, like, what was my reaction to that? Like looting, I was like, what is going on here? This just made me laugh so much.
Yeah, so it's the scene where the looting's begun, and she's just come out of the to the train line, etc. And she's just taken off her equipment. She puts it on the bonnet of the car, basically starts crying about her fallen assistant, and somebody comes along and steals the oxygen equipment. David just sent me this video, and he was just like, oh, come on, guys.
I was just like, I can believe that all the people because they're all carrying like Xboxes or whatever, in the 90s, wherever it is, but they're all carrying electricals, TVs, all this kind of stuff. And then somebody just goes like, yeah, oxygen, I'll have that, because like if there was like a paramedic at the scene, as if somebody's going to steal like, the paramedic's equipment or something. I was just like, that just, I thought was hilarious. It was like a sketch in that she was like, oh no, somebody's stolen my oxygen.
I didn't actually notice that until you sent me that video, and I was like, oh yeah.
It's so weird.
I didn't even notice that first time. That's meant.
Yeah, go back and watch it. It's just so random, and it just made me laugh. So how are we feeling now, guys, with our usual segment, which is the movie vault, which is choosing a film to preserve for all time, unless it gets blown up in a volcano, of course, that maybe symbolizes disaster films. Like, do you think that there's one from today? Are they both just too ridiculous? Is there a better disaster film out there that, we have to wait until another day? Or are they just all write-offs?
I would argue I would like to see Volcano put in. I think it has the right level of seriousness, but like self-aware enjoyment to it, that I think a lot of disaster films can sort of benefit from that.
Sure, if it's got to be one of the two, it's going to be Volcano. that's yeah.
I think the reason I want to go with Volcano as well, but I think the main reason I want to go with Volcano is because it is the disaster movies, as we've mentioned, have been going for a while. But genuinely, I think the disaster movie reached its peak in the 90s.
True. Yeah.
I feel like in the 90s you had things like your Volcanoes, your Dante's Peaks, your Independence Day, and it was all mixtures of natural disasters and sci-fi disasters. I just think that the 90s got them down really well. And most things post-2000, they relied heavily on the CGI, and this film has CGI. It obviously has CGI. There's points in it where I was like, oh yeah, that's fair. but there's a lot more of this film that relies on like talking about the science of it, and it's about trying to battle this thing, because like with 2012 it felt like it was just cataclysm, and disaster movies nowadays do feel like just it's cataclysm and it's doom and gloom and there's no way out, whereas these are like races against time.
Yeah.
And Volcano feels like that. There is this ticking time bomb effect, and it's really nice. Like everything's constantly on the go, and the acting's great. I think I would love to put it in as a symbol of the 90s disaster movie. I'd say Volcano is right up there with that, and I think it definitely deserves a place in the vault.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The idea of these disaster films being so crucial to the 90s, and there being so many of them, especially, like you said, you got a great cast. You know, you got Tommy Lee Jones, Don Cheadle, which are like big icons of that time, you know, and they're also going to be in other movies that are in the vault. And also just like the trailer, like I said, you got the trailer voice guy there. You got that great line of, you know, the coast is toast, which you know you don't want to lose that.
I mean, that's going in for just on that, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm definitely like convinced by what you said there, Chris, and I think you're the same as well, Kieran. As you said, you know, out of the two, that this is the one you would pick.
Yeah, no, Christopher's convinced me. Volcano's going in.
Awesome. Representing disaster movies this week then is Volcano. Into the movie vault you go.
We're in the endgame now.
It's so annoying.
Before I start this endgame, I feel that there is something important that needs to be said. On the day of recording this episode, it was announced that unfortunately the host of the beloved show Jeopardy, Alex Trebek, passed away due to struggles with cancer. I think that he's a cultural icon for Jeopardy, as well as the fact that he managed to basically engage with a lot of people because of that show, but also because of his good humor. So the fact that he was humbly known as Kebert Zeller in a number of situations because of a Family Guy joke, even to the point that he appeared in one of our previous endgames because of that. So I just want to say, as somebody who hosts technically a game show, that he will be sorely missed, and I would like to thank him for any inspiration. Okay, endgame time. So this game is actually called Critical Moment. So what I've done is I've taken a number of disaster movies. I've taken them from the IMDb list, the top 100 disaster movies. Basically, what I've done is I've taken the films from that list and I found their critical score on the website Rotten Tomatoes. And basically, we're going to have a variation of the game Price is Right with them. So I'm going to basically, I'm going to give you a film and I want you to tell me if its critical reception was higher or lower than the film before. So, and there are also bonus points. If basically, I'll give a bonus point to whoever can give me like the number percentage of what it scores. If you're within 5% either way, I'll give you the bonus point. So, for example, if a film was say scored 76 and you say you think it scored 78, you get the bonus point. So, are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So obviously there's no higher or lower for the first one because there's nothing to compare. But the first film is Volcano. Its critical reception was annoyingly 50%. So we have to say whether the next film is higher or lower than Volcano's rating. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
2012. Higher or lower? Okay. So Kieran has gone for higher at scoring at 65%. Chris has gone for lower, scoring 42%. Kieran, you are? Which means Chris is... It indeed scored a critical reception lower. And what did it scored? 39%, which means Chris... Bonus points. Next film. The Towering Inferno. higher or lower than 39%? Loving the tense concentration from both these guys at this point. Okay. So both of them have said higher. Both of them are correct. Any bonus points? So Kieran has gone for 83%. Chris has gone for 63%. The exact percentage it got was 69%. So sadly, no bonus points.
That's really surprising.
Nice. Next. So that's a point for both of you for saying it's higher. The Poseidon Adventure, higher or lower than 69%? Okay, so yet again, both of them have said it's higher than the Tower Inferno. Both of them are. Any bonus points? Kieran has gone for 75%. Chris has gone for 82%. So the exact answer is it got 80%. So both get a bonus point. Next up, we have the birds. Higher or lower than 80%?
What a disaster film that is.
I will say IMDb classified it as a disaster film, and to be fair, if birds took over the planet, I can't think of anything else that isn't more terrifying than that. So,
yeah,
is it bad that I thought Birdemic?
Yeah, if Birdemic is a disaster, then the birds definitely is.
Okay, but yeah, it is bad that you thought of Birdemic versus the classic The Birds. So we've got a divergent. Kieran has gone for higher. Chris has gone for lower. Chris? That means Kieran? Yep, it is indeed higher than 80%. The exact percentage that Kieran has given me is 90%. The bird scored 95. So Kieran?
That was a tough one because, yeah, I think in hindsight, a lot of people have gone back to the birds and gone, actually, compared to other Hitchcock films, it's not that great, but I thought maybe originally.
Yeah, I was just say.
It's how many critics would go back and review it.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
It's just Hitchcock, like you said, in general, isn't it?
Okay, so after 4 films, you are level pegging with 5 points each. So this one should be a bit easier. We now go to The Day After Tomorrow. Higher or lower than 95%? Okay, so both of you have gone for lower. Both of you are understandably correct. So, Kieran has gone for 50%, Chris has gone for 48%. This is gutting because the exact answer is 44%, which means that Kieran just misses out on the bonus point by 1%. Chris gets the bonus point.
Yeah.
We should have stopped counting when I was winning.
Topical. Okay, next up, 28 days later.
Oh.
So both of you have gone for higher. Both of you are the percentages. Kieran has gone for 87%. Chris has gone for 75%. One of you is exactly spot on.
Oh.
So what I'm going to do is, because you got it spot on, I'm going to give 2 bonus points for it, because I don't see that happening all too often. The correct answer is 87%.
Yeah. So... Well in. Well played. Well played. I'm underselling these movies.
So again, it's just gone to a point. It's just a single point difference at this point.
Oh.
All right. Next film is Earthquake.
Is this like the sequel to Volcano?
Okay, so both of you have gone for lower. Yeah, I mean, it's a film nobody's heard of, so I can understand that it would be lower than 28 Days Later. Any bonus points? Kieran has gone for 15%. That is way too low.
Yeah.
Actually, weirdly, I think the lowest on this I can't tell you what the lowest on this list is because I would be defying part of the game. Oh, wait, no, can I? Yeah, we've already had what the lowest on the list is. Yeah, so the lowest on this list is like 39%.
Right.
So it's not going to go much lower than that.
That's quite generous for disaster films. Even
I
though
know.
it's at the top.
Chris has gone for 48%. The exact percentage for earthquake is 42. So again, 1% off that bonus point. Unfortunate. But now we have the film The Perfect Storm. Higher or lower than 42? So you've both gone for higher. Any bonus points? Chris has gone for 67. Kieran gone for 72. The correct answer is 47. So no bonus points.
Oh, wow.
So after The Perfect Storm, we go for Deep Impact. Higher or lower than 47%. So both of you have gone for higher than 47. It's lower. It's 45%.
Oh wow.
Oh, I wish people could see Chris's face right now. It looks devastating.
This is why I don't like Rotten Tomatoes.
It is surprising.
Pretty much. Okay. So after Deep Impact on 45%, we've got I Am Legend.
More of a post-disaster film, really. This.
Okay. So both of you have said higher. Kieran has gone for 80%. Chris has gone for 53%. The exact percentage it's gone is 68%. So sadly, no bonus points there. Okay, and after those questions, we're currently on. Here are the scores. Chris is on 10. Kieran's on 11.
Oh.
There's still about 5 more to go.
Oh.
Chris is wondering if there's somebody monitoring in Craig's room right now.
Okay. Apollo 13. Higher or lower than 68%? So both of you have gone for higher, which is... So the percentages. Chris has gone for 81%. Kieran has gone for 91%. The exact percentage is 96%. So that is...
Hey. So close.
A bonus point to Kieran. But now we go from Apollo 13 to Armageddon. Okay, so both of you have gone for lower. Kieran has gone for 57%. Chris has gone for 47%. The exact percentage he's got is 38%.
Wow.
So that is actually the lowest ranked film of today. I'm happy to tell you. So no bonus points there. Although I've basically told you the next one, which is really unfortunate because it's the film Eight-Legged Freaks. Basically, you're going to say higher, but what percentage did it get?
Such a natural disaster, this, you know. Giant spiders attack us.
Okay, so the percentages you've gone for as such. Kieran has gone for 69%. Nice. Chris has gone for 42%. It's 48%, so unfortunately just missing out on the bonus points again.
It's those even numbers, Chris.
Okay, so with 2 questions left, there is a 2-point lead to Kieran. It is possible to draw. The next film after Eight-Legged Freaks, San Andreas. Higher or lower? Kieran has gone for 55%. Chris has gone for 53%. It scored 50%. Both get a bonus point.
I would have lost that. I thought it was like 68 or something.
Okay, so what needs to happen in order for a draw is that Chris needs to perfectly guess the score of this next film. The next film is The Road. Is it higher or lower than 53%? Okay. So you've both gone for higher than 50%, which is the percentages. Chris has gone for 66%. Kieran has gone for 94%. So the correct answer is 66. So in terms of the bonus point, and now the final scores. That 1 point lead was maintained by Kieran in the end, scoring 17 to Chris's 16.
Oh.
So,
can I be well cheeky?
Yep.
I did get it exactly right.
No, you didn't. Sorry, 64%. I meant to say.
Oh, you said. Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
I misread. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
2020 summed up right there.
64%. I do apologize.
Fair enough.
I was gonna say Chris's reaction was like, "Oh my God!" I was just like,
I just saw that as the damn it. I was so close.
Yeah. Your winning streak has come to an end, Chris.
I know. Good game, Kieran.
Kieran, how do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I probably spent too much time on Rotten Tomatoes.
28 days later was brilliant. I mean, that one answer is the answer that won you the game, right? Otherwise, it would have been a perfect draw.
Yeah, spot on. I'm surprised about the road.
Yeah, the road is a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I thought that'd be much.
I thought that was beloved by all.
So yeah, well done, Kieran. This week's endgame winner, redeeming himself after after his Star Wars. So thank you both guys for joining us today. It didn't turn out as a disaster after all. We've had a lot of fun. There might have been some hurdles along the way, but we've all come out of it in the shining light, just like 2012, to a new world. Hopefully that's what 2021 will be. So where can we catch you both guys? Chris, where's best to get catch to you? I know you said you got a project coming up for Christmas as well, is it, with your acting?
Yes, indeed. You can find me on Facebook at Dramatic Moose Productions, and this coming Christmas, it's been unfortunately a rather dead year for performance in the arts in general. But we will be working together with our good friends, the Watchers Productions, and Valiant Films to produce a radio play of a Christmas Carol, which we're hoping to be recording soon and releasing 3 days before Christmas. It'll be in episodic form. So hopefully, if you keep an eye out to Valiant Film Productions, Watchers Productions, and Dramatic Moose Productions, and keep informed.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of that this year, and we're going to get some nice Christmas stuff, like some audio things, recorded things, kind of like how we had at Halloween. We had virtual Hocus Pocus fundraisers, and Jack Black singing Tenacious, doing Time Warp and great things like that. So Kieran, where can we catch yourself?
The only thing I've got is a video game podcast, so it's the Purple Ghost podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. We try and post as regularly as possible, but it's
with
a
that
little
PS5 the big console launches, is anything coming up now?
Yeah, I mean we talk about a sort of variety of games, sort of old and new, bit of everything really. I don't know if any of us are planning on getting a PS5, but anyway,
you might have to rent out another room if you want. The size of that thing is crazy. The people I've seen post it, I'm like, oh my God, that's just a box. It's like up there. I'm like, what the hell is that? Crazy. So thank you for joining us today, guys. Remember, for everyone at home as well, you can catch us at Well Good Movies on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can also catch us on our website, which is freshtakehub.com/wellgoodmovies. You can also catch a bunch of great written content at the moment. We've got some stuff from Halloween and reviews of films like Over the Moon and a lot of Netflix stuff coming up. And like I say, we've got a lot of Christmassy goodies on its way as well. So, thank you, everyone. Anything else from yourself, Craig?
I just have some life advice I want everyone to walk away with. If life's getting you down and you find that the ground around you is crumbling and you don't know how to carry on, I just want you to remember you cannot outrun that shit. It will kill you. Don't even try.
Wow. Well, you heard it before, guys, with the 2012. He was just like, I don't see the point. But I'd also remember Jerry is not a good man. I think that's the big, that's another big takeaway from this. So thank you, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. And be safe. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Rolling down